aviation and the Indian aviation sector is often known as the place where airlines go to die. Several airlines have perished over the last many decades in an attempt to really make it in this sector. The story we're tackling today is not a case of this. We're talking about AirAsia India and what is going to happen with AirAsia India. AirAsia internationally all across the world is in trouble. The Malaysia-based low-cost carrier is shutting its operations in Japan. They're in desperate need to restructure their credit lines to even continue as a going concern. And in India, they've sent out an SOS to their local partner, which is the Tata Group. So a lot of Tata news today on the show. And the Tatas have 51% stake. A little bit of money just to keep them going has been given is what is being reported widely. The question is, for how long? Are we looking at a major consolidation now in this space? Remember, COVID-19 and the pandemic has been exceptionally hard on airlines. Some domestic travel has begun to pick up, but nowhere nearly close to, say, levels last year this time. So who will survive and who will perish in the high-stakes aviation game? To speak on this, I'm joined now by three gentlemen who really live and breathe aviation, I would say. Dheeraj Mathur is with us on the show today, as is Mark D. Martin and Jitendra Bhargav. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us on the show. Mark, let me begin with your take specifically on AirAsia India and how you think the story will play out next there. The Tata Group already has, its sort of space filled up in terms of aviation. They are in a joint venture on Vistara. They are partially running Air India and partially running AirAsia and are supposed to have shown interest in acquiring Air India as well. So what do you think will be the strategy for them?
Good evening and stay safe, everybody. I think one of the biggest problems we've seen with AirAsia is that from the time they came over to India, they've always had a spate of bad luck, which started with CEOs who tried to adapt to the market, figured themselves out, and they moved from one CEO to another CEO to another CEO. Then internal control issues between AirAsia and the Tatas, and then further several bits came up on PIO aspects of Tony Fernandez. So AirAsia has been in many ways jinxed from the moment they started with the moment they set foot in this country, and that's been a problem with how the airline has been in terms of its operations, its network, its expansion. A lot of their expansion was expected to be aimed at taking on Indigo, which clearly never happened. But if you compare that with AirAsia's other markets, for example, AirAsia Thailand or Malaysia or the Philippines, those airlines are doing extremely well. So clearly, AirAsia's success are in certain pockets. Now, the Tatas acquiring AirAsia, to be honest with you, industry insiders knew this all along. This word on the street was that the Tatas might be looking at a total takeover and a takeout of AirAsia. So this actually began 18 months ago. I'm actually surprised that it took so long for the deal to take place.
Yeah.
Does this really work out to be a conflict for everybody? I really don't think so because, let's face it, when the government allowed 49% FDI and airlines from foreign carriers, that's how Vistara, which was SIA and Tata and AirAsia and Tata, that's when they commenced and that's how they started. So if ideally we are looking at an a Tata's possibly in a perfect world acquiring an Air India, also taking over a Vistara, and what they will take over of AirAsia is not the fleet but just the AOC, the people and the branding, or maybe the branding might go back, we're not sure, but whatever they do take, that should make Tata's at least collectively the world's second largest airline conglomerate after Lufthansa Group AG. Lufthansa Group AG globally has a total revenue of about $16 billion, and I think if Air India with the Tatas, hopefully, wishful thinking, and with AirAsia and Vistara collectively come by together, we should look at a top line revenue of about at least 7 to 8 billion. Now, Again, this is something which I hope we see in the next 12 months, but a lot of focus, as you rightly said, comes to where we are at the moment in terms of how does this deal pan out, because the fleet is going to go back. And what's going to be left is just an organization. And is that even worth continuing? Is that AOC worth keeping or surrendering or possibly getting rid of that AirAsia brand from India for good? So this is something which is a major question mark, and we're also looking at this very closely at the moment.
It's a very interesting thought, Mark. Should the Tatas really go in for this jumbo aviation business at a time when IATA says that internationally, globally, airlines are burning $300,000 a minute? It's a risky proposition at the best of times. Jitendra Bhargav, do you think that the Tatas will want to go in that direction? Question number one. And question number two, who is really going to survive in the current situation among the current airlines?
Let me look at the second question first. As we have said it in one of your programs earlier, only those which have deep pockets will survive, because it's a prolonged impact of the pandemic. The demand destruction is huge, notwithstanding the optimism being expressed by our civil aviation minister that things should normalize between Diwali and New Year. It's going to take much longer. As far as acquisition of Air India is concerned, let us not put Tatas in the league of the other airlines which are all over the world, global airlines, because all these airlines have a huge capacity on ground with very limited passengers flying. Tatas have an advantage that if they were to acquire Air India, they acquire the passengers along with it, and they do not have long-haul aircraft in their fleet at the moment. Vistara has only a couple of Dreamliners with them. So they will be able to bid, and we all believe and know that India is a huge growing market. The traffic between India, Europe, and USA, as the air bubble flights are showing, is humongous. So they will be able to capitalize. And unlike Air India, which only operates direct flights to the United States from Mumbai and Delhi, a private entrepreneur will be able to give that marketing impetus and ensure why shouldn't there be a flight from Silicon Valley of India to Silicon Valley in the United States. Again, from Hyderabad, a whole lot of people travel to the United States. And we have allowed the Gulf carriers, the European carriers to monopolize only because Air India did not have that initiative in it, or the government blessing to keep expanding and fly and operate profitably. So once you have a private ownership, commercial considerations, superb product, there is no reason why Air India's acquisition should not be a sound proposition for the Tatas.
Dheeraj Mathur, let me get your first comment on AirAsia India. Over the weekend, there was a comment from the union minister saying that it's going to fold up. It was then clarified that perhaps it was out of context, etc. But is it just a matter of time? And I really want to look at this in a wider picture and specifically get an answer of, will all the current players be able to survive looking at the present situation of capacities and passenger footfalls?
Well, see, the first thing is that things have been improving. It's not complete gloom and doom. I think PLFs are around 65, 66%, as against about 88 to 90%, maybe 85 to 88%. And each month has been improving. Second, there was an interesting report from OYO that on the long weekend that just passed by, there was a 70% surge in bookings for 3 destinations: Jaipur, Kochi, and one other which I forget. And OYO also did a survey, and they found that Indians were, all looking to sort of travel to, go on vacation. They'd started thinking about their vacations already. So it's not all gloom and doom. Certainly, the pandemic was an exogenous shock to the entire industry, not just in India, but all over the world. And the ability to come specifically to your question as to who will survive, I think the airlines whose promoters has not just the deep pockets but also the deep persistence or commitment to the sector and to the airlines, and is therefore willing to bring in the additional equity. Those are the ones that will survive, because clearly everybody is in a bad shape as far as their losses are concerned. So it really depends upon the promoters of the various airlines as to which of them are going to survive. And coming to AirAsia specifically, well, I mean, you mentioned it yourself that globally that they have some serious issues. They're winding up their operations in Japan. I think this is the third time they're doing it. So clearly they have issues beyond India. But as far as India is concerned, hopefully nobody will fold. But if somebody will fold, it'll be because the promoters aren't willing to put in more money.
So, I just want to get a sense of the outlook, Mr. Bhargav. The outlook of, whether we are really going to see that kind of pickup. Mr. Mathur talked about a recent survey and leisure, long weekend kind of domestic travel. But till your international travel is extremely limited and your domestic travel has cut out a lot of work travel, do you think there is enough out there for airlines to really survive and flourish and get back to previous levels? Right now, they're just about getting along on the basic, very, very crucial travel needs.
Mana, I would love to be optimistic because it means airline will survive, employees will not lose jobs, but the reality is quite different. While there is no denying that we have reached 40% of the pre-COVID level on domestic front, but let's look what is the kind of journey ahead for the next few months or a couple of years from now. We all know that the business travel at the moment is very, very limited because conferences, meetings, seminars are not taking place. Then you have the social travel, people traveling for weddings and family occasions, medical and other reasons they're not traveling. Leisure travel, a lot of jobs are at stake or salary cuts have taken place, so you have a lot of people not wanting to travel. And the fourth thing which you very rightly mentioned was the international travel. A lot of people travel from abroad, come to India and then travel within the country. Now, you have 13 countries, air bubble agreement with 13 countries, but that's simply not enough to kind of get traffic for the Indian carriers to fly globally and to fly within the country. So as long as the problem is acute, they're not flying optimally, you will see most of them losing money. And once they're losing money, and that leads me to your question, who will survive? Now, we all know, yes, Tata's had deep pockets. Air India is government owned. And then Indigo has been making money. They may be losing money, but they have cash reserves with them. So once you have this, it's a clear game that you have three airlines who will survive. Now, coming specifically to AirAsia India, you see, let's put it this way, Indian market is not easy. AirAsia has an exceptionally successful business model. They've succeeded there. But India is a little different. Not only price sensitivity, but a country with high taxation. And this takes me to a statement of J.R.D. Tata, which he made on 22nd June 1953 while addressing the last general body meeting of Air India under Tata ownership. He said, India needs small number but profitable airlines. Second, the reason why airlines are shutting down is not because of the high cost of operations in India, but because of the uneconomically low fares in India. So as long as fares are low and airlines are not expanding, AirAsia, even after 6 years, managed to get only 6% market share. So how are you going to, on a 30 aircraft fixed costs are there, and unless you are constantly expanding, you will not be able to sustain in the Indian market, as Indigo has very rightly shown. operate multiple flights on a single destination, keep flying on 6 flights Bombay to Bangalore, 8 flights Delhi to Bangalore, etc. And then you are able to make money. So it's a successful Indigo model that needs to be emulated by others. And if they can do it, make money even with low costs, even with low fares, then that is what is needed. But if you do not follow the rules of the game, I don't think these carriers will be successful, as many carriers have shown. Because legacy carriers, Kingfisher closure, Jet was a totally different ballgame. And Air India losing money heavily is also a different game. Because legacy carriers with their high costs are unable to compete in the Indian market because Indigo sets the fare level and these legacy carriers have to just add 200, 300 rupees over their fare. And at times they do not even get enough passengers at those fares. So once you lose money, it's a sorry state. And Indigo, this AirAsia India perhaps will go the same way unless you really put in money and expand a minimum of 10% market share.
Does anyone have the appetite for it right now? Do the Tatas have the appetite for it right now? Really is the huge question. But Mark, I want to come to you on the question of Air India, which has been sort of, waiting in the wings for really long. And the pandemic has once again stalled that process, pushed it ahead. The terms being offered to a possible suitor have become even sweeter now from the government. Even so, are you really optimistic that there will be some kind of closure and that there will be a new owner sooner than later?
Tamanna, honestly, I don't think Air India is going to get a suitor anytime soon. The disinvestment process, or rather, nearly all disinvestment initiatives by the government, be it Pawan Hans, Air India, what they were looking at Bharat Electronics, BHEL, nearly each and every one of these has been, or rather, have been permanently stalled. Because if you're looking at somebody who wants to buy Air India, then you need to get someone who's got a spare 10 to 15 billion dollars lying in his wallet, and any airline who's got that kind of money is going to be focused on saving his own airline or getting his own airline out of the quagmire, given where we are with COVID. Now let's be very clear. Pre-COVID, October 2019, there was some hint of a nation economic slowdown, so airlines were not doing too well. Also, the entire approach of what they've done to Air India, which is literally strip it off its valuables and just throw out the skeleton, and that's what you want to sell out, is not really going to be very useful, because Air India had built, or has clearly has built a critical mass over the last 40-50 years, when it peaked in terms of its stature, its operations, its network, and its fleet. And given where you want to kind of do, which is almost nearly technically a garage sale, is not going to be it. Now, one of the reasons why I think and I feel that the Tatas are right for this is because the Tatas look at a long term return on investment window. With any business opportunity, they're going to look at 25 years minimum. So it's not about having deep pockets, it's about sustaining the model to the time and to the point that it can work. And this has been a Tata strategy all along. We've seen it with Tata Motors, we've seen it with JLR, we've seen it with Chorus Steel. The whole idea is to let it grow organic. If it's flat, it's fine. It will pick up at some point. And I think the point of AirAsia, it's isolated. I mean, to start with, they got the India strategy wrong from day one. They should have aggressively expanded in the Indian market. They didn't. The AirAsia that we've all seen in Southeast Asia is nothing compared to the AirAsia that we have in India. So clearly, they've messed up and they've screwed up big time. What can be done? I think the only thing left to be done at the moment is not really a consolidation, but give everybody a timeout. The biggest question is lessors. Are they willing to give them a timeout? Yes, we have seen restructuring happen. So that's very progressive on one side. Lending has also balanced out to some
What
and
do you
now
mean
it
by
just
a
boils
timeout?
down to
Who is going to give
promoter
who a
led.
timeout?
I think more importantly, it's defer, Tamanna. You defer your liabilities, defer your lending, and defer your lease rental payments. Defer is a strategy that's worked very well. And sadly, AirAsia is going to go, and we will lose one airline off our register. But I think from a long-term perspective, I do see a very nice synergy being created with possibly Vistara, and then if all goes well, Air India with the Tatas, and that might just roll into a nice, stable air transport conglomerate, something that India always needed all along. And I just hope that that happens soon because when we talk Air India, we're talking about Air India Express, Alliance Air, Indian Airlines, which was not really merged too well, and of course Air India. So it's four airlines, and uh, and from a broader perspective, I think that's going to give a lot of foreign exchange investment boost to India, and it's going to really be tremendous as a money spinner. So in all honesty, I'd like to be a bit more optimistic. I think. Yes, we're all in this. We're stuck in this at the moment. Let's hope COVID clouds lift up
Costs
and we can
nothing.
start flying again.
The great part is absolutely, absolutely, Mark. The great part is that optimism costs nothing, but a jumbo airline made of several bits and parts of others will definitely cost a lot to whoever has the wherewithal to cut that check, and maybe the Tatas are among them. The question is about the Indian aviation market. Will another one bite the dust? And this one being AirAsia India. Well, watch this space. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on this discussion on the India development debate. We'll take a very short break. The India Revival Mission special coverage up next.